Mara, 9:12 p.m. We'll talk Monday. No punctuation. Not even a period. I stared at the message for maybe 5 full minutes. I didn't type anything back. Just watched the three dots appear, then disappear, then appear again, then vanish. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. Rage? Relief? I felt like vomiting, if that counts. She knew what Monday meant. She knew. And she still pushed it off like a dentist appointment. We had been dancing around the conversation for weeks. And by dancing, I mean I was chasing her around the metaphorical room while she pretended to forget the music was even playing. You ever try to fix something while the other person keeps hiding the tools? That was me. Every day for the last 6 months. And now she texts me, "We'll talk Monday," like I'm a coworker asking for feedback on a PowerPoint. I was sitting in the car outside our house when it came through. Engine off. Heat fading. My forehead against the steering wheel, breathing like I just ran a mile. I hadn't even gone inside yet. I didn't want to go inside. The lights were on. I could see her shadow move past the blinds. And I just sat there. Because what do you do when you know it's over, but you're still expected to be polite about it? I went in eventually. Quiet. Careful. She was in the bedroom, lights dimmed, watching some crime docuseries like nothing was wrong. She didn't even look up. Just said, "Hey," and kept watching a dramatization of someone being buried alive. Ironic. I brushed my teeth, laid beside her, stared at the ceiling, counted 57 tiny bumps in the plaster, and then I turned my back to her. She didn't say goodnight. I didn't say anything at all. At 3:44 a.m., I got up, went to the living room, and ordered a printer from a 24-hour office supply place. At 6:08 a.m., I emailed my lawyer. At 9:17 a.m., I printed the papers. At 10:03 a.m., I put them on her car seat. No note. No words. She said Monday. I didn't feel like waiting. By noon, she still hadn't mentioned the envelope. I watched from the upstairs window as she walked to her car, gym bag over one shoulder, iced coffee in hand, keys jingling like it was just another Saturday. She opened the door, tossed her stuff in, and sat down right on top of the divorce papers without even flinching. Did she not see them? Or did she see them and pretend they weren't there? Either answer was worse than the other. She reversed out like she was late for Pilates, and just like that, the last remaining shard of hope snapped in half. I didn't even know why I had hoped she'd react. Maybe slam the door, maybe come back and screaming, or crying, or denying something. But she just drove off. I sat down on the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, staring at the silent spot where her phone charger used to be. You start noticing stupid things when you're spiraling. Like how her earrings were gone from the tray. How her robe wasn't hanging on the back of the door. Her scent wasn't in the room anymore. Just soft linen and finality. It was like she had already moved out, emotionally, at least. I was just the last one to get the memo. I checked her location. I know, desperate. But she'd left Find My on since 2018, and I hadn't touched it in years until now. I wish I could say she was at the gym or work, but she wasn't. She was parked at a wine bar downtown at 12:41 p.m. on a Saturday, and she wasn't alone. I recognized the car, not because I'd seen him before, but because I hadn't. It was a black Audi A7, polished, personalized plates, too clean to belong to someone who needed to impress anyone anymore. The kind of car you buy when you're used to people saying yes before you finish your sentence. She stepped out of it at one point to answer a call, and that's when it hit me. I wasn't watching someone betray me. I was watching someone who had already moved on. I was just the ghost still haunting her timeline. I closed the app. I didn't throw my phone, didn't punch a wall, didn't scream. I just sat there and chewed the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. When she got home that evening, she didn't mention the envelope. Not a word. She came in like she always did, humming a melody she probably picked up from a radio in the Uber, poured herself a glass of wine, and started scrolling TikTok on the couch like I was just a roommate she barely tolerated. She didn't know I had already contacted the process server. She didn't know that by Monday morning, she'd be receiving more than just silence. She said we'd talk Monday. Fine, we will. But she won't be doing much of the talking. She finally brought it up. But not in the way I expected. It was Sunday night. Late. She was standing in the kitchen with her back to me, casually dropping ice cubes into a glass like we weren't on the edge of detonation. I was pretending to watch TV, but I hadn't registered a single word of the documentary I'd put on. I was just waiting for her to say something. Anything. I wanted to hear her admit it, explain it, lie. I would have accepted even a lie at that point, just to prove she still had something to lose. Instead, she said, "So, you printed out paperwork." Not even turning around. Not even curious. Just cold. I didn't answer right away. I was too stunned. That was her opening line. "No, what is this about?" "No, can we talk?" Just that? Then she finally turned to face me. She was holding the glass to her lips, red nails tapping lightly against the rim. "I saw it yesterday," she said, almost like she was bored. "I figured you were just having a moment." Having a moment? I stood up slowly, because if I didn't, I was going to throw something. "You figured I was just, what, bluffing?" She shrugged. "You've been acting emotional for weeks, Cal. This whole thing is, I don't know, performative." Performative. She really said that. I took a step forward, my hands shaking. "You've been disappearing every weekend. You've been dodging me for months. And I find a message on your tablet about meeting someone Sunday night, and your response is, 'It was nothing,'" she interrupted sharply, like I was being childish. "He's a client. A client you wink at in texts?" She laughed. Laughed. Not a guilty laugh. Not nervous. Just amused. "God, you're being dramatic," she said, sipping her drink. "You always go nuclear over the dumbest things." I said we'd talk Monday because I wanted one weekend without being interrogated. Interrogated? I hadn't even raised my voice. I hadn't followed her. I hadn't confronted her. I'd barely breathed around her since the message popped up. And she had the audacity to call that interrogation? "You went to a wine bar with him." She didn't even blink. "And we discussed a listing. At noon. On a Saturday. In his car. With your hand on his chest?" She froze, just for a second. Barely noticeable, but I caught it. Her grip tightened around the glass. "You were following me?" "No," I snapped. "I saw it on your Find My. You forgot you shared your location years ago. I just opened the app. You gave me the coordinates, Mara." She didn't say anything. I stepped closer. "And let me guess," I continued, voice lower. "The other listings you've been showing these last few weekends, are they all clients too?" She rolled her eyes, turned away, and walked straight past me into the bedroom. That's when I realized she wasn't panicked. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. Because in her mind, I wasn't going to do a damn thing about it. But I had already done everything. The papers were just the beginning. The thing about someone who's sure they've already won is, they don't prepare for a counterattack. Mara walked into Monday like she always did. Gym leggings, coffee in hand, Bluetooth in her ear, talking to someone about viewing windows and staging headaches, like her marriage wasn't collapsing underneath her. I sat at the dining table pretending to scroll my phone, pretending to be the same idiot she married. And she let me. She didn't even ask if I was going into work. Didn't ask why I was still in sweatpants. Didn't notice the manila envelope tucked into the side of her tote bag, the one she didn't check before running out the door. It was a second copy of the papers. I knew she'd ignore the first. That was Mara's signature move. Pretend something doesn't exist long enough and it'll eventually back down. But I don't back down anymore. That version of me, the pushover, he died somewhere between the iPad message and the lie about a wine bar listing. She got the second copy right before her morning meeting. I timed it. I even texted her while she was in the elevator. "Check your bag, since we're talking Monday." No reply. Not immediately. But 30 minutes later, the front door burst open so hard the frame rattled. "Are you serious right now?" she shouted from the hallway. "You really want to do this like this?" I didn't answer. I let her come find me, sitting calmly in the kitchen with a half-eaten piece of toast and a cup of coffee I'd reheated twice. She was holding the papers in her fist like they'd personally insulted her. "You're ending our marriage by paperwork ambush?" she hissed. "You couldn't even have a conversation first." "Conversation?" I raised an eyebrow. "You said we'd talk Monday. It's Monday." She looked like she wanted to slap the plate off the table. But she didn't. Because losing control would mean she cared. And she didn't want to give me that. "You're overreacting," she said finally. "You know this is a tantrum, right? You're blowing up your life over something that isn't even what you think it is." I stood up. "No," I said quietly. "I'm cleaning up the pieces of a life you already blew up without telling me." Her mouth opened, then closed. That was a first. "I begged for your attention for a year, Mara," I continued. "I asked what was wrong. I tried everything. You made me feel crazy. Like I was paranoid. Like I was needy. But the truth was standing 3 feet away the whole time. And you wouldn't even look me in the eye." She crossed her arms. So what? You think this little legal stunt's going to make me apologize? You want a scene? Fine. Cry all you want. I'm not going to stand here and pretend like you didn't manipulate this entire marriage with your guilt trips and sulking. You turned into a child every time something didn't go your way. It stung, because some of it was true. I had sulked. I had withdrawn. But not because I was immature. I did it because I was bleeding out emotionally, and every time I tried to reach for her, she gave me more reasons to stop trying. You're not even denying it, I said. She laughed, but this time it cracked a little. What do you want from me, Calvin? A confession? Fine. I had dinner with someone. I kissed someone. It didn't mean anything. But maybe if you'd been present instead of sulking like a kicked puppy for the last 8 months. There it was. Finally. Honesty. Brutal, surgical honesty. And it didn't fix anything. It just confirmed I wasn't crazy. And somehow that hurt more than the lies. I'll have someone pick up my stuff this week, I said quietly. Her face twitched. Wait, you're actually going through with it? You thought I wasn't. She didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Because she'd spent so long believing I wouldn't stand up for myself that she forgot what I looked like when I finally did. She didn't cry when she confessed to kissing him. She didn't cry when I handed her divorce papers. She didn't cry when I said I was done. But she cried when I told her she couldn't keep the dog. I wasn't trying to hurt her. Honestly, I hadn't even thought about it until she asked. We were sitting across from each other at the kitchen island, not talking, just filling out forms, dividing furniture and digital subscriptions like we were splitting up a company, not a marriage. And then she looked up, hesitated, and said, I'd like to keep Bentley. It was the first time her voice cracked. Bentley's our golden retriever. 5 years old. Sleeps under my desk. Waits at the door when I shower. Hates cucumbers. He was the only living thing in this house that didn't pull away from me these last 6 months. No, I said softly. He's staying with me. She stared at me like I'd just slapped her. Are you serious? Dead serious. You don't even walk him half the time. That's funny. Coming from the person who spent most weekends in someone else's car. Her expression shattered. Not like before, not the cold, calculated mass cracking under pressure. This was raw, real. She looked young, almost small. For a second, she wasn't the untouchable, sharp-tongued version of Mara I'd been living with. She was the woman I used to wrap in a blanket when she came home crying after bad client calls. The woman who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen on Sunday mornings, playing Fleetwood Mac off her phone and burning every single pancake she tried to make. But I didn't back down, because I knew what would happen if I did. She'd use that crack in my armor to wedge herself back in, not out of love, but out of fear, out of needing to feel in control again. I'd be just one more weak-willed guy who couldn't finish what he started. Please, she whispered. He's all I have left in this house. I nodded. Exactly. She didn't respond after that. Just stood up, walked to the sink, and stood there for a full minute with her back to me. I think she was trying to pull herself back together. To become Mara again, polished, bulletproof, in charge. But it wasn't working. Not this time. I wish I could say I felt triumphant. Vindicated. But all I felt was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that settles in your bones and rewrites your definition of peace. I texted my brother that night and asked if I could stay at his place for a week or two. He didn't ask questions. Just sent the Wi-Fi password and said the guest bed had clean sheets. I packed light. A duffel bag. My laptop. A framed photo of my mom. Bentley's leash. As I zipped the bag shut, Mara stood in the hallway with her arms crossed. She didn't ask me to stay. She didn't beg. But her eyes were rimmed red, and her lip had that tiny tremble I'd only seen twice in our entire relationship. Once at her father's funeral, and once when I proposed. Are you really walking away? She asked. I clipped Bentley's leash to his collar. No, I said. I already walked away. You just didn't notice. Then I opened the door and stepped out. Bentley followed. She didn't. 3 days after I left, she emailed me. Not a long message. Just, you left your hoodie. The gray one. Want me to drop it off? I didn't reply. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because I couldn't tell if it was bait or an olive branch. Mara never did anything without layers. Even her apologies used to feel like legal negotiations, controlled, phrased just right, always leaving a back door open in case she needed to reverse course. I didn't want the hoodie. I wanted space. But curiosity's a disease, and I'm terminal. That night, I logged into the joint email account we hadn't used in years, the one we made back when we thought couples needed shared calendars and his and hers productivity. I don't know why I checked it. Maybe I thought she might have forwarded something there. Maybe I just wanted to punish myself. What I found was a draft. A single email sitting in the drafts folder. Unsent, but written. Addressed to someone named Gabe. I knew the name. She'd mentioned him once. Said he was a nightmare client who changed his mind every 5 minutes. Back then, I thought she was venting. Normal work stuff. But now, reading that draft, it was clear. Gabe was not a client. Gabe was the one. The email wasn't even long. Just 10 sentences. But each one dug into me like glass. I can't believe how good it feels to just talk to someone again. He used to listen. He doesn't anymore. No, he hasn't touched me in months. But it's more than that. With you, I feel seen. He clings like he's owed something. If I leave, I need to know you're really in this. I can't blow up my life without a reason that holds. You make me feel like I'm allowed to exist again. He won't survive on his own. That scares me. But maybe that's not my job anymore. It wasn't the betrayal that hurt. Not exactly. It was the way she described me. Like I was some broken little project she had outgrown. Like I was clinging, suffocating, a weight she had to carry through life while she silently resented every step. And she never even sent it. She just wrote it, let it sit there like an escape hatch she was building in secret, waiting for the right moment to crawl through. I didn't delete it. I didn't confront her. I just sat there for an hour with the screen glowing in my face, rereading the line. He clings like he's owed something. Was that how I'd come across? Was every desperate attempt to fix us just another chain in her eyes? Later that night, I took Bentley for a walk, but I wasn't present. Not really. My legs moved, but my brain was replaying conversations from the last 2 years. Her flat tone when I told her I missed her, the way she rolled her eyes when I said I felt disconnected, the silence that always followed when I asked if she still loved me. I used to think she didn't have the words. Now I know she just saved them for someone else. When I got back to my brother's place, I made a decision I hadn't considered before. I forwarded the draft to myself. Not to use it against her, not for leverage or revenge, but because I needed to remember what it really looked like. Not the fantasy version I kept building in my head where she just lost her way or got confused. No, she chose this. She planned it. She even tried to justify it. And most importantly, she didn't regret it. Not really. The next morning, I got a text from her. Hey, did you check the email? I just saw you logged in. She must have seen the notification. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, yeah, I saw it. I didn't say anything else. I didn't have to. There's nothing left to say when someone writes your obituary while you're still alive and calls it a draft. I don't know what I expected after she realized I'd read the draft. An apology? A meltdown? One last dramatic monologue where she begged for redemption? What I got was silence. 3 days. No texts. No calls. No emails. The quietest Mara had ever been in her life. Which, ironically, said more than anything she could have screamed into a voicemail. I thought maybe that was the end. That the silence would be our final conversation. But on Thursday afternoon, while I was taking Bentley out behind my brother's place, she showed up. In person. She was standing at the end of the gravel driveway when I turned the corner, like some ghost that had wandered too far from home. Wearing sunglasses even though it was overcast, her hair pulled back like she was trying to look unbothered. She held a small box in both hands. I figured you'd be here, she said. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. She walked closer, slow, like she was worried Bentley might lunge at her. He didn't. He just sat down beside me, calm, but alert, watching her the way I was. I brought your watch, she said, lifting the box slightly. The one from your dad. You left it in the nightstand. I hadn't even realized. And I hated that she did. I took the box without a word. She waited, like she wanted me to ask her something. I didn't. So she filled the silence herself. I didn't send the email, she said quietly. You know that, right? But you wrote it, I said. She looked away. I turned to go back inside, but then she said something that made me stop. There's more. I turned back. More what? She hesitated. I need to tell you something. Something I should have said a long time ago. I folded my arms. Then say it. She took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were glassy, and for the first time in weeks, I saw actual fear there. Not panic, not manipulation. Fear. You remember the lake house? She asked. Of course I did. It was the one we rented 3 summers in a row with her friends. The one with the squeaky dock and the red hammock out back. The one she insisted we stop visiting after 2022. Said it was too far and too much hassle. I hadn't questioned it. I was just glad to avoid another weekend pretending to like her friends. I went back last summer, she said. Alone. I already knew, but I let her say it anyway. I told you I had a conference in Oregon, she continued. But Gabe met me there. We spent 4 days together. And I told him, if he asked me to leave you, I would. The world didn't spin. My knees didn't buckle. I didn't scream. I just nodded. You didn't leave because he didn't ask you to, I said. She nodded too. Slowly. Like each inch of movement hurt. I'm not telling you this to win you back, she said. I know I can't. You deserve to know that it wasn't just about texting or drinks. I crossed a line. Fully. Repeatedly. And I justified it to myself in every possible way. But the truth is, I did it because I thought you'd never leave. I thought you'd stay no matter how far I pushed. You were right, I said. Until I wasn't. She looked down, and for a second, I almost felt sorry for her again. But I held the line. Because that's what this whole thing had been. A test of how much I'd let myself break to avoid breaking the image of US. I told Gabe I wouldn't talk to him anymore, she said. I haven't since. I don't care, I replied. That made her flinch. Not dramatically, just enough to show it landed. She stepped back. Goodbye, Cal. I didn't say it back. She got in her car and drove off without another word. When I went back inside, I opened the box. The watch was there, along with a folded photo I hadn't seen in years. Us at the lake house, 2019. She was holding a wine glass. I had my arm around her shoulders. We were both laughing. I stared at that picture for a long time. Then I ripped it in half. And this time, it felt like healing. It's strange how quiet life becomes when you finally stop begging for noise. It's been 6 weeks since she left that box. 6 weeks since I stood in the driveway with a leash in one hand and a memory in the other. And every day since then, I've expected some final twist. A call, a letter, some desperate Hail Mary from Mara's end. But it never came. And that silence? It healed me more than any apology ever could. At first, the days were heavy. I won't lie. You don't walk away from almost a decade of your life without feeling like you've lost a limb. I kept waking up early out of habit, expecting the soft clink of her coffee mug on the counter. I'd reach for my phone to send a meme I knew she'd laugh at, only to stop halfway, realizing she didn't get to be the first person I shared things with anymore. But slowly, I started reclaiming things. My routines, my space, my sense of self. I started running again. Not far, not fast. Just a few miles in the morning with Bentley pulling me forward like he knew I needed the momentum. I repainted the office, changed the photos on the wall, deleted every shared playlist we ever made. I stopped checking her socials. I stopped asking mutual friends how she was doing. I stopped pretending I'd ever be able to understand the version of her I'd married, because I finally understood the version of me she'd abandoned. I wasn't a victim. I was a placeholder. Until I wasn't. 3 weeks ago, I met someone. No fireworks. No fate. Just coincidence. I was at the farmer's market picking up honey for my brother's girlfriend, and she bumped into me at the berry stand. She apologized. I made a dumb joke. She laughed like she meant it. And we ended up sitting on the curb with paper cups of lavender lemonade, talking about dogs and bad weather and how people always seem to lose themselves inside relationships they outgrow. Her name's Elise. She doesn't know the full story yet. She doesn't need to. Not yet. Right now, we're just 2 people showing up as we are. No rescue missions. No masks. No pretending. It's early. I know that. But yesterday, she reached down, scratched behind Bentley's ears, and said, "He acts like he's guarding you. Like you're the most valuable thing in the world." I smiled. For the first time in months, I actually believed it. So yeah, maybe she said, "We'll talk Monday." Maybe she thought I'd wait around forever. Maybe she thought she broke me. But here's the truth. I wasn't broken. I was just in the wrong hands. And now, I'm not.